The Mexicans, as I say, are pursuing some bilateral challenges or issues with the United States. So is Canada. But we both remain absolutely committed to the trilateral free trade agreement and working together as this review process unfolds.
So we'll continue to make the point and keep telling them that we're ready at the table whenever the parties want to review CUSMA.
First there, Dominic Laval, the minister overseeing the trade negotiations with Canada and the United States, followed by Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne earlier on this show, reacting to reporting from major news outlets out of the United States that President Trump may quit CUSMA. The trilateral trade agreement between Canada, the U.S. and Mexico is up for review this year, but Trump has certainly put its future into question. What's our next move? Let's bring back the front bench. Christy Clark, Marco Mendicino, James Moore, and Tony Clement are all here. Tony, I'll start with you. Some of the more interesting details in the New York Times reporting was the way in which they were interpreting the recent threat, I think last time we were together, around the Gordie Howe Bridge, and a number of the different tactics being employed as trying to up the pressure, really, and excise more concessions from Canada in this process. How should we be interpreting that, do you think?
Yeah, this is typical Trump pressure tactics. He's known for it. He's done it all his life in real estate and in politics. So he's trying to destabilize us, knock us off our game, having us look behind our shoulder. All of this is so typical of Donald Trump's negotiating style. So I would advise the government of Canada, and I'd advise the people of Canada, do not take the bait, do not freak out, don't go crazy and light our hair on fire and run in circles. None of that is helpful. We just take it for what it is. It's a bunch of noise. At the same time, we have to continue to do what we can do as a country to increase our leverage when we're in negotiations. Thank goodness Stephen Harper concluded a trade deal with the European Union in the dying days of his government, because I think that's to our benefit. And I know Mark Carney is pursuing similar attachments, which is all good. And yeah, find the things that are in our favor. With the fact that 75% of our trade is with our southern neighbors, so that's a fact of the situation, a fact for us, but also a fact for them.
It feels like there's certainly like almost coalescing of opinion around that, or it feels like that's what's happening, Christy, right? Like that there's a bit of an acceptance that this is a very punishing roller coaster ride, and to focus on the things, quote unquote, we can control. What kind of pressure does that put on the federal government, though, about those things?
Well, I think this kind of constant change is actually something the federal government is learning from, which is probably odds are it's not going to happen, that they're going to just bail on CUSMA and it's not going to happen. I think CUSMA will be renewed, and my optimism about that stems from the fact that American American businesses that depend on Canada, in particular in agriculture, most of which are in red states, are saying we need to keep this free trade deal going. I mean, there's not much downside for the United States to keep Canada in the deal. So I think, yes, it's a roller coaster ride. Yes, it's been bumpy, and yes, it will continue to be bumpy. But I think ultimately CUSMA will be renewed. And I will say too, I think that the federal government kind of failing to engage and not getting all worked up about it and engaging in news cycle after news cycle on it has been really helpful. I think just sort of letting it lie, letting it happen, let the negotiators, and I think that Janice Charest and Mark Wiseman are absolutely fantastic picks to be down there doing some of this work alongside Dominic LeBlanc. I think that's going to make a big difference for this. So, keep on and carry on, and that's the best Canadian motto we've got at the moment, except when Canada meets the U.S. in the final.
Yeah, sadly didn't turn out the way we wanted today, but we still have Sunday, and hopes are high, as they should be. James, I wanted to ask you just about the approach. Janice Charest will lead the negotiations on the trade side. Mark Wiseman has just assumed officially the post of ambassador. The idea of kind of delineating between those two roles versus them being together, what do you think of that approach?
It's a slightly different approach, but I think it's probably entirely logical, and it's about putting a structure around the prime minister that he's comfortable with. Prime Minister Trudeau had a different approach, where Minister Freeland really kind of bore the public engagement on this, and she was very deeply involved in the negotiation of it. And I think net it proved out to be, I think, a worthwhile experience, but I don't think it would work again this time with Minister Freeland as a person and that approach with this government. So I think Prime Minister Carney's taken a different approach. And I'm glad that Premier Clark, which she just mentioned, both Janice Charette and Mark Weissman, those two people, they bring different perspectives, right? Mark Weissman is a business leader, successful in the business community. So he has a lens on this that comes from the investment community. He also went to school in the United States, and so he's lived and worked on both sides of the borders. He has roots in Niagara Falls. He understands the cultural alignment between the two countries. That's a good thing. Janice Charette comes just a life of public service. She's worked for the Canadian government under the blue team and the red team. She's been in senior ranks of the public service through Presidents Obama, Trump 45, President Biden, and Trump 47. And so she has a long lens view of all the stakeholder mapping that has to be done to make sure that Canada stays united and whole as we go into the reconsideration of CUSMA. So I think that the footing of the government is generally very firm and very correct. And I think Tony's advice is sound, right? Which is don't react, respond, be measured, be thoughtful, be calm. Donald Trump promised 100% tariffs against Canada, didn't do it. He said he had to have Greenland, he was going to take it no matter what, didn't do it. He's promised a lot of stuff. He's threatened far more tariffs than he's actually imposed. So keep calm, carry on. CUSMA will survive. We saw 6 Republicans push back against the president. They had to revise their job numbers down by 1 million jobs just last week. The data is not good in the United States. And I think the rising tide of pushback against Trump and Trumpism on social, political, cultural stuff and economics, I think it's a rising tide across the board, and I think that serves Canada.
Yeah, I think all of that is true, Marco. The one caveat is that there is a cost to all the uncertainty, right? Like that, and we see that. And I just interviewed Mr. Polas, for example, Stephen Polas, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, who showed us in economic terms what that cost is, right? Basically, a stagnant economy at best case scenario. And I know that the federal government is talking a lot about all the things it's going to do to change that picture. But what is your take on the amount of pressure to actually make good on that in light of this sort of stasis of uncertainty that we face?
Well, I think the pressure is high, and that's one of the reasons why domestically the Prime Minister's put forward a very ambitious economic agenda that is all about building. Just this week, we saw the release of a new defense industrial strategy, which is going to see us champion both established but also new and emerging Canadian champions so that we can get the tools into the hands of the Canadian Armed Forces that they need. But I want to come back to some of the points that James made about the economic case in the United States. Just in the last couple of days, I think we've seen some statistics that are quite damning of Trump's core argument around tariffs, which would be that they're this great boon to the American economy. Well, they're running a record trade deficit over $1.25 trillion. James talked about the jobs numbers having to be revised down, and inflation is still stubbornly high. So all of the key arguments that Trump made around how these tariffs would be so good, I think are working to the opposite effect, and I think Americans are paying the price. And to make matters worse, when he makes comments like, well, I'm going to shut down the Gordie Howe Bridge. And I mean, this is a bridge that I know. I've got family in Windsor, and I see it. I mean, the bridge is built. And ironically, that bridge will add to their economic capacity and strengthen the economic corridors between two countries who have benefited from integration, which is the main principle that underscored NAFTA and now CUSMA in this instance. I think it's just all of these arguments are working against Trump. So in the meantime, I think it is important to understand what the Prime Minister's strategy is, which is to leverage relationships abroad. And he has really racked up some wins. The foreign direct investment that is now starting to pour into Canada is encouraging. The $70 billion plus that has been committed from the UAE, the lowering of tariffs with China that will provide more affordable options when it comes to modes of transportation. I think you'll see that trend continue as the Prime Minister continues to take the case for investing in Canada abroad. And you know, I'm abroad right now. I can tell you there are a lot of folks who want to do more business in Canada, and I think that is the way to mitigate the uncertainty.
Tony, and I, like I said, I take everything that Marco just spelled out. I listen as the federal government paints that picture, but there are still very key economic indicators here, despite everything we know is wrong with the economic case in the United States, that it's also having a detrimental impact here, and that people are not doing great in a lot of different respects.
No,
what issues does that present?
No, absolutely. Obviously, that's hurting everybody at the grocery store and trying to buy a house. But Vashi, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, as a business person now, the capital flight that is happening in this country right now, money going away, it's in the billions and billions and billions of dollars right now, this very second, for the last 9 months, who knows how long. So they do need certainty, Vashi. That's another point for, you know, vis-a-vis what Marco was saying. We do need a deal eventually with the United States to allay that, to make this a sound investment opportunity to invest in Canada and for our own Canadians to invest in Canada. So that isn't happening right now. And I really worry about the long-term impacts of that if we're in this stasis period of no deal, who knows, right? A lot of uncertainty there.
Yeah,
Although I guess last word to you, Christy. Yeah, very quickly, because I want to get Christy in. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I apologize, but I was just going to say there is some concern there, but take a look at Minister LeBlanc's trade delegation to Mexico, and take a look at the presence there. Take a look at how large the Canadian companies there who are going to bring investments back. Take a look at the nearly 2,000 delegates that are there. So I take some of Tony's points, but there are also concrete, I think, points of evidence that there is inbound investment in Canada as well.
I think Vashi,
Christy, last word to you, yeah.
The most important thing here in terms of the interim is the government has to do two things. One, they have to make sure that they are managing down taxes in Canada so that we are inviting more investment into the country, and a better regulatory environment and lower taxes. That's one thing. And the other thing is they need to get out there and create encourage people to invest in Canada so that we can create those jobs. The number of jobs that will be created by building more pipelines, LNG plants, mines, car factories, whatever they happen to be across the country, will spin off tons of money in tax revenue. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but I think the government is taking this on from a very practical, business-like perspective. Keep taxes moderate and manageable, and make sure that we are growing the economy on the other side of it. There's no other way out of it. It's not like this is some magic formula. It's just a magic formula that most politicians normally avoid. Luckily, this government seems to be taking that path.
I've got 30 seconds. They're all yours, James.
Well, we'll see. Right. I mean, we had the first tranche of major projects. We had the second tranche around the Grey Cup. I guess the Super Bowl ones didn't get announced. Maybe they're coming. I don't know. But if it's going to be, if we're going to have, our economic future in the near term predicated on, defense procurement and a major projects office in Calgary, I think we need to do better than that. I think Tony's right. We need to make Canada more competitive. When you see the needle start moving on people whose livelihoods, businesses, and investment decisions are actually the hallmark of whether or not we're going to have a strong economy, those are the canaries in the mine. It's not whether or not the government wants to do deficit spending on military procurement. That's patchwork stuff, the core stuff of being competitive on the tax side, on the regulatory side, inviting investment, and the people who invest real dollars. When those people start moving, I'll believe it, and I'll be much more enthused about where we are. And also,
I'm sure you will, James.
A strong Canada means a strong United States. A strong United States means a strong Canada. Our economies have to work in tandem, and that's the argument for CUSMA. That's the argument for trade. We're their biggest customer. They're our biggest customer. When they're wealthy, we're wealthy, and the inverse is true. And we never should stop beating that drum. It's the most successful relationship in the history of the world.
Except for Sunday, when we kick the refs. Okay, thanks, everybody. Yes. Appreciate it. Thanks for a great discussion. Our front bench, Marco Mendicino, James Ward, Tony Clement, and Christy Clark.